Well, it is Thursday and we are live at 1 p.m. Well, just after 1 p.m. We're good. But it is time for 30 with Karen and Justin. I appreciate y'all for checking in with us today. Today's guest is someone who's using his voice, creativity, and lived experience to change the conversation around race, culture, and accessibility. He's a public speaker, an advocate, performer, and the founder of Brightside Scope, a platform dedicated to empowering diverse voices and creating more inclusive spaces through storytelling, education, and entertainment. From advocacy and consulting to music, comedy, and media, he brings a perspective that is both powerful and deeply authentic. And we're excited to have him here today. Please welcome Ben Akuoko. Ben, thank you for coming on.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me, Justin. And I'm very excited about this conversation today.
Amazing. So I wanted to start with something simple. What is Brightside Scope and what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So, with the Brightside Scope, a little bit about my story. It's pretty much showing as a person because I'm an individual who lives with visual impairment, partial sight, low vision, whatever you want to call it. And then also um, a child of immigrant parents from Ghana, West Africa. And
Cool. Yeah.
what I noticed with having those different intersectionalities, it wasn't really a space to talk about all those rolled up into one. So with the Brightside Scope, I am a person who I call myself a professional side quester. So
I
I,
like that.
I love getting into so many different things, like whether it's sports or whether it is theater or whether it's something academic. So even with that said, I was like, let me show people as a black male living with a disability, the type of things that I get up to because there's so many assumptions and so many misconceptions about individuals like me that's out there. And this gives people the opportunity to really raise their voice on their different identities. So, like I said, my love of public speaking, I love to do accessibility consulting. I love to be in like the media light where I have done commercials and made music. So this gives me a good opportunity, especially on social media, to show like, oh, check this guy who lives with low vision joining a boxing class or joining a crowd class. So
Yeah.
different aspects to really motivate people to be where they want to be.
You've sort of coined this term, which kind of fits in perfectly to what you just said, edutainment, right? And I love the idea of it because I kind of get where you're going with it. But tell me what it means to you and how it's been a powerful tool for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, I love to entertain. Like
Mm,
I used to beatbox, I used to freestyle, I used to break dance, I used to uh act, do a little bit acting with my sisters. And I was like, I always had that creativity side of my being. So
right.
with that said, I remember when I got into academics where I have my bachelor's of social work and my master's of social work. And I remember when I was doing my bachelor's, I was like, oh, do I have to give all this up? Like, do I have to go to like a stuffy office and like all this all the time and just like not even have an ounce of creativity, just be told what to do? So I felt that it's so important to incorporate both, right? Because you still need the facts, you still need the research, but at the same time, I feel like storytelling is so key. So with a lot of presentations I do, it's people wanting to hear stories. Like, here's me telling them about theories and they're like, nah, we don't want that. We want to hear your experiences, your authentic experiences. So I was like, okay, you know what? Why don't we incorporate education? Because it's good to have, like I said, that the facts behind it. And then
Sure.
let's throw in or entertainment where here I do a poem before, or I do a little song before, or I do a little bit of stand-up comedy incorporated into my presentation. So it's funny you bring up edutainment as I like to push, so education and entertainment, but I want to add another one that I just across after speaking to someone, and I call that engagement. So I like to have education, entertainment and engagement. So I don't know how I'm going to add that in onto entertainment, but I find
I love the idea of that because your edutainment to me is okay, education and entertainment, that piece together, I get it. That can be done anywhere online. You can find all that stuff. But the third piece there is just so important because engagement is when people actually respond to what it is you're doing. And I think that's the piece that you can have all the education and entertainment in the world. If no one's responding to it in a positive way, then what's the point? So I love that you've added that piece. It's a really cool transition going forward. Um, how has your lived experience shaped the way that you see accessibility today?
absolutely. So even growing up with my eye condition, it's actually
Were you born with that or did you grow into that? Like, did it happen later on?
I was actually born with it. So they found out at 2 years old.
Mm,
And with that said, it's retinal eye disease. So it actually gets worse as I get older, right? So it
right.
deteriorates as I get older. So when I was younger, then my family was just like, "What's wrong with this clumsy little kid?" Where I kept bumping tables and nighttime, like I couldn't see because with that eye condition, it affects your peripheral vision
Mm,
and also affects your night vision. But besides that, I was still able to pass, I like to say pass as a person who had sight. So I still played football and basketball, I still watching TV, although I sat really close, I was still able to identify faces.
mm,
So with that said, I call this like the Scooby-Doo syndrome where people will be like, "Oh, you're blind or low vision." I'd be like, "Who are you talking to? Not me." Like just like people are like, "Oh, Scooby, you're a dog," and he's like, "Where?" Right? So even with that said, like I didn't even really know that I lived with a visual impairment growing up. I thought all the kids saw the same. And
right.
after grade 3, I was like, "Oh, damn. Okay, I think I see a little bit different because I don't see the board, right?"
Wow.
Even with that said, it was a lot of pretty much I would say not coming to terms with me losing my vision as a young person
Sure.
wouldn't because it's like here I'm shooting a basketball. What's going on? Like obviously I can see, right?
Right.
So with that said, like I was coming into my own as a person who has had vision loss, where I met some really amazing people. I experienced some really great experiences. And with that said, like even me now in the social work field, plus doing the Brightside Scope and my other work experience, I look at the importance that accessibility is so key. And
Mm,
when you don't live it and you live in that a scope where you need accessibility, you notice that, well, this world is not really accessible for individuals with disabilities. And a perfect example is I know by a certain establishment, I won't mention the name, that I live by, they have a sign that's literally like my face level. You know what I mean?
mm,
For someone who can't see that well and has tunnel vision and focusing on where they're going, that I could walk into that easily and it's sharp, right? So
right.
almost that people who are not in the accessibility world are like, oh, that's just another sign, right? Even when we look at in Burlington, we look at the intersections, just having those intersections that make noise for us to cross
Mm,
a game changer, especially across busy roads, because we are taught how to cross using the traffic. But when it's a busy road like Fairview and Branch Street, like that's difficult. So they did put that in, but there's still some streets that have um we call it audible pedestrian signals that are
yes.
so I find that before I used to be a little bit meek when I talked about accommodation and accessibility. And now
Mm,
I'm just like proud. Like I'm like, okay, we need this to not just help me, not just help other people with disabilities, but when you put forth accessibility, you're helping the whole community because even when you look at ramps and low cut curbs, there are people who have strollers, there are people who have suitcases who are pushing carts. That's good for them. When you're looking at when you go on a bus and it has the call out system,
Yeah.
you people who may not be paying attention, people who may not know where they're going. So I feel that accessibility is not just for individuals with disabilities, it's pretty much for all of us within the community.
I got to ask you, those yellow pads they put at intersections, is that part of what you're talking about, the disability, the accessibility?
Absolutely, absolutely. So for anybody who has low vision,
Yeah.
they're able to identify that and
As a
know.
corner, basically, so you know not to walk past it right away without stopping and getting your bearing and figuring it out, right?
Exactly, exactly. And even see, right now is a perfect example of discussing that because I bet a lot of people did not know that. Like,
I had no idea. I saw them being installed in my neighborhood, and they actually reinstalled a few. They took some out because they were, busted up and looking a bit sad. And so, so they've put some new ones in. And I watched the whole process because it took a few days, and they have to put a whole new concrete set in there and everything and all that. But I genuinely had no clue. I literally had no clue. I thought maybe it was just to show a corner for kids, or I don't know. Literally, just putting the pieces together while I'm speaking to you. That's why I asked that.
perfect discussion because even a lot of people don't realize. So I have a couple of stories. I remember I went to Japan and I went with a friend and another friend. And in Japan, they actually have tracks that, as a cane user, you could put your cane into the little track and follow along so you know that you're not veering to the left or veering to the right.
Oh my.
Intersections. And I remember my friend was like, I had no idea what that was for. Or even before you go up a flight of stairs, you know how it's like the little bumpy things before a flight?
Yes.
So we call that uh wayfinding, right? So
Right.
with that said, if I'm using a cane, I know that I'm coming to a set of stairs.
Before you hit the stairs, because you don't want to hit the stairs and
And then
you'll
you
go either over and down, or crack your ankle on the stair or something like that, I'm sure. That's great.
yeah, it's like Indiana Jones with the rolling boulder. That's what happened if I don't know for sure.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, I've so again, like, just thinking about the city, the Burlington in general has just redone a couple of bus stops on Fairview Street that include now these large ramps to bring you down from the upper level of the bus stop, which is interesting. I mean, I'm starting to notice that more and more. It sounds like Burlington is a fairly well, like they think about this sort of thing.
Yeah, and you know what? I find it from really great advocates. So we have some really great advocates in Burlington that speak up for stuff like this, right? Because the one thing I definitely love and I'm proud of Burlington is it's a place where people love to help, right? And people love to listen and it has just different type of people. So I find that yes, like I remember with Fairview on Brand, they didn't have the audible pedestrian signals. I gave a call in and a few months later they installed it. So yeah, I feel like they're pretty supportive and just like I said, people like myself and also allies as well to let the city know that this needs to be accessible, right? To work in conjunction with the city.
So if I'm a disabled human being and I need something changed or have a thought about something, there is a line to call in myself and actually make those comments to the city.
You could call in the city and then you could actually make um, a request and a form, and then just let them know like what you need accessible throughout the city, and they will do it the best they can. So I'm
Amazing.
lucky enough to work in advocacy, or I worked in advocacy before during my day
Mhm.
job. So I was lucky enough to stumble upon that. So
Well, and again, if you don't know, you don't know. So hopefully there's some people watching this that have now learned something to be able to make some changes for themselves and their loved ones. right? That's pretty awesome. Like I genuinely had no idea. I've never thought about it. And the funny part was is I made a call to the city to fix my curb because the plows smashed it this year and like shredded it to pieces. It's the same thing. I mean, that's just aesthetic look. That means nothing for me, but I mean at the end of the day, it's far more important to have these accessibility items maintained and monitored so that we have them. And if from the city perspective as well, if the city doesn't know, they don't know.
Mhm.
So unless you tell them, what are they going to do? They're going to do nothing. That's it's funny because there was a lot of people up in arms about the census this year and complaining about having to give all their information. And it's like you don't realize the census is there to be able to create programming and understand how many people are in that area. And again, if you don't fill it out, they don't know. So it's the same idea here. If you don't speak up, they don't know. I have a very serious question for you now. We're going to get a little serious here, Ben, okay? I need to know, when did you first realize that your voice in particular, could be used for advocacy?
Absolutely. So even growing up in a family of West African Ghanaian parents, you couldn't be quiet. Stay
You
on the
got to
side.
speak up.
There's a lot of like cultures or a lot of families in general who are like that, where if you're not saying something in that family, they're just gonna not even know you're there, right?
Do you
So
have a bunch of brothers and sisters, or how does that?
two sisters, and I had a lot of family live with me at one time.
Yes.
And like I said, even just my family, everybody's very opinionated, right? Everybody wants to get their opinions across. So from there, like even as a youngster, I was very shy. I was very quiet. I was very, oh my gosh, like no one's gonna listen to me. Let me stand by the side. And then I feel like as I got older, especially, and this is even like I would say developed like 5 years ago because I was very, very lax, like go with the flow. But then I realized I have nothing to lose if you
Right.
say something. We come across sometimes that if we say something, we're gonna anger someone, or we're gonna be a burden, or we're gonna upset someone. But what I realize is with advocacy, when you can spell something out for someone,
Mm,
share a story, when you could have a solution, then it's no reason for someone to get upset about it, right?
hmm.
When you're coming at it where it's like, you just have to change this and just walk away, like, or yelling and spouting and swearing and cussing and all this, no one's gonna listen. They're gonna think you're aggressive, right? So what I have learned is it's so important. It's just like what you said. If you don't say something, no one's gonna know.
Hmm.
We can't have the expectations that people could read our mind, right? So I learned that, yeah, you definitely have to use your voice, and not only for yourself. With public speaking, there's been times where I've done some talks at universities or even elementary schools or community organizations. And I had someone come up to me after all the time. People come up to me after and they're like, I experienced something similar or something uh, similar to your circumstance. And thank you for saying this. This was really motivating, right? So
Mm,
I think to myself, when I use my voice, there's someone out there who I am creating a trail or a path for them to use the voice. And that's what the Brightside Scope is about, right? Like, although it's based around my experiences, I still want to motivate people to get on social media or to get in different platforms or to get in the community and share their stories and be as creative, be themselves when they do share their story.
how does race and culture and disability intersect in your work and your identity as well?
Absolutely. So even with that said, is the way I experience something as a person with low vision and blindness, as a black man, is going to be so different than the way someone else experiences it. And not that it's harder, not that it's easier, but it's just the way you look at the experience. Like even for me as a male who has a disability, my experience is going to be so different from a female who has a disability. So even a perfect question, perfect story, I remember when I used to work shift work, and it was a place where we would be going home at 12 a.m., 1 a.m. at night. And I remember me walking home. I could be like, gosh, la 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 la, or I have my cane, I don't feel worried. But I remember my colleague making mention of her feeling worried of
Right.
using cane. And this is why I like life, because you're always learning. Here's me being like, oh well, I walk home with a cane too. Why are you worried? And now looking back and catching myself, oh my gosh, safety, right?
Mm,
Certain places and spaces where sometimes we feel that we don't belong because it is, we don't feel like our culture is really seen in those spaces. So I remember in the past, a lot of spaces for blind or low vision, it'd be like, okay, we have these braille books, but do they have racialized authors, right?
right.
Predominantly like mainstream authors. So even just little things that people don't realize, like I want to read a book on something that I can relate to, but it's not even offered in accessible formatting. And that could take a lot where it's like, okay, I don't belong here. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So even just looking at those little things where my goal, my goal on this world is for everybody to be represented, right?
mm,
You could have a disability or a certain mobility disability, but feel that you're still represented in your culture or religion or race, right? You could have um, deaf or hard of hearing and still feel that you're represented as a male who's deaf or hard of hearing, who's racialized, right? I want everybody to have their voice and be able to share their experiences because
mm.
I found that because people felt that, oh, this had nothing to do with nothing, or this had nothing to do with being blind or low vision. It does go a long way in
Sure.
the way you navigate through life, for sure.
So you mentioned public speaking and all of these thoughts that are coming at us here, which are just intense and amazing. How do you balance sort of the idea of storytelling and advocacy and the music and the comedy and the things that you do with your public speaking to kind of get your point across? Like, how does that play out for you?
So I learned this when I did social work, is people open up when they feel like they could relate to you or they feel like they feel comfortable with you.
Mm.
So I found with public speaking, when I embraced comedy into public speaking, I felt that people would kind of be like, okay, like a little bit more interested. When you have, yeah, I remember I was talking to a room full of different CEOs, a part of community organizations. And I was like, know what? Let me open it up with a song, right?
Mm.
Let me open it up with one of the songs I made. And I found that people were like, whoa, you know what I mean? I never knew you did this. And people were excited and the energy came, and then I could do my speech, right? Like you have to capture people. You have to capture people's imagination. You have to take them on a ride with a presentation. If I just come in, here's these stats, here's these stats, here's these stats, give
Mm.
me my money, I'm going home. Like it's not relatable. And also, I find with creativity and laughter and comedy, I gotta even admit, like growing up, disability was heavy, race was heavy, culture was heavy. And carrying that heaviness, I feel like right now we are in a time where we have to celebrate where we have come from, right? And we have to like when you're in social work and when you're in this space, you're constantly hit with the heaviness, the advocacy, the oppression, which is fair to be, but you have to have time where you have to just lighten it up, right? You have to.
I love that. That's amazing. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a couple things I think here when I'm listening to you talk, right? I think that there's a lot of people that would use, and I'm not saying it's not justified, but they could feel victimized by their disability, by their racial, status or whatever. There's all kinds of things, and they are in a lot of ways. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're not, but what I find interesting about you is you've taken all of those stereotypes and those stigmas that you would deal with on a daily basis, and you probably still do today. And you've sort of flipped it on its head to be able to say, listen, I'm not going to stand for this. And I'm going to go out there. Not only that, am I not going to stand for it in my own world, but I'm going to go out and help change other people's worlds too, and give other people a voice too, which I think is what I'm hearing is your bigger mission here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it creates conversation. And the one thing I find, especially with the mindset, my mantra of the Brightside Scope, is I want to have a conversation with people, right? I want to
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation with people about accessibility or people about oppression and not make it so heavy because I find when it is heavy, when it is negative, when it is this and that, this you did this, you did that. I feel that people take it away by feeling judged, right? Or people want to get a point across. But when you do come with it in a conversation, like start off by talking about sports, right? And then get into the conversation. You know what I mean? It
Mm-hmm.
becomes a discussion, it becomes a conversation, it becomes authentic, right? So that's definitely what I try and push with for with the creativity and the comedy and like just having entertainment.
Yeah, this is like, and I hate to tell you this, but this is like marketing 101 that you're practicing right now because, we do the same thing. I'm sick and tired of stuffy old boring real estate videos. I try to bring a little bit of comedy into it to help people relate and want to stick around a little longer to see the house. So it's just everybody laughs. I don't care how stuffy or stuck up you are or whatever. Something's going to make you laugh at some point, and everybody can connect on that level at some way or another, right? Because I don't know anybody or many people that have gone through life without even a little smile here and there. So I love the idea that you're kind of trying to bring that as a tool to be able to bring more people together to listen to your message and to bring it together. And I will say this, I mean, we've been talking for 25 odd minutes or so. You are probably one of the most dynamic young men I have ever spoken to. You have your family should be so proud of everything you're doing right now because I literally am seeing an incredible human being that has faced diversity and all kinds of things in your life. And yet here you still are championing and pioneering for others like yourself to have a better life, which, I think is we need more of this. I think I keep saying this every week to some of the people that I speak to with all these charities and things and opportunities. And I think we need more of this. So I appreciate what you're doing. Let me ask you this. Are there any barriers that still exist that people don't talk enough about?
Yeah, know what? Definitely, I would say the barriers, attitudinal barriers, are huge. So,
Right.
attitudinal barriers of what I can do and what I can't do. So, it's a lot of assumptions, even when I'm walking through my neighborhood or going wherever, it's a lot of assumptions that, oh, you can't do that by yourself. How did you do that? And like, even there's times I'm calling an Uber and they're like, did someone call that for you? It's like, no, I use my technology. And I gotta be fair with it. What you don't know is what you don't know, right? So I feel that with these barriers, it's so important for me as an advocate to touch and reach as many people as well. And even throwing in race and culture in there, like letting people tell their stories and telling my story about definitely people assuming that I was up to no good back in the day because my left eye shifts over here, right? So
Right.
it it's just like aspects such as that where I am put on this world to educate and defeat those attitudinal barriers. So I find that every time I step into a space, because there's been times where I stepped into dance class, there's been times where I stepped into boxing class, where I went to go run a marathon and all these different things, and people were kind of like, but by the end of it, they're like, come again, yeah, you're right, you're
That's
right,
amazing.
yeah, and it's just like it's exposure,
Right.
and I just feel that attitudinal barriers need to be people need to learn And then at the same time, another barrier is just people who just don't want to learn, who refuse. Like, I have no time for this. Yeah, like definitely getting at those people as well. And then physical barriers as well. So things like what I'm saying at that store with the low sign and
Mm,
even like signs in front and on downtown, when it's a restaurant where they put the patio outside, even that could be very detrimental for someone walking down the street with low vision because it's like it's no direction. We're used to going down a straight line, right? So
right, right.
there's aspects such as that, and I feel like having discussions as that is some barriers out there.
And it's funny because I would imagine you not just the people with disabilities that have barriers, but I imagine there's people that you need to speak to that have attitudinal barriers where it's like, dudes, we got to get some change happening here, and you are the people that need to help with this. It's not like I'm here to tell you about it, but you need to be the people, and they need to change their attitude. It's funny because there's a great sort of story around the idea of what is it? Is it the 4 minute mile or the 5 minute mile or something? At one point, I don't run, so I don't know anything about these timings, but there was a time when nobody believed anybody could do a 5 minute mile,
Mhm.
right? Run a 5 minute mile. And then one guy stood up and went, I'm going to do this and just did it. And then it was like, what? We can do that? Oh, but that correlates perfectly to what you're saying. It's like you walk into dance class and someone's like, how are you going to do this? Really?
Mhm.
And by the end of it, they're like, well, what do you know? You know what I mean? I can imagine that moment of like the light bulb going off, and then you being able to do that creates the experience or the example for others like yourself to say, hey, listen, you know, try this. It's not that big a deal. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to fall down. Whatever. Who cares? Life
Mhm.
is life. Fun is fun. Let's go do something about it. Right.
Absolutely.
So, what impact do you hope that Brightside Scope has long term?
I hope that the Brightside Scope is a platform for people to have a voice and for people to be comfortable with having a voice and for people to be comfortable with incorporating accessibility and incorporating discussions about like race and culture and being okay with talking about that, right? Like I know one of my biggest goals is in I'm like those high achiever. I'm aiming for the stars. So my biggest goals is for people to even because before growing up as a person of blindness, low vision, it almost felt like people were scared to talk to me, right? People were scared to interact.
Gotcha. Yes.
Wanted to be where like my presence and doing so many presentations throughout the community and being seen in the community and social media being seen that I'm at the GO station, people be like, hey Ben, yeah, I saw you get up to this. How is that? Like just normalize and not be afraid and not feel uncomfortable interacting with a person who's blind or low vision, you know?
That's amazing. No, I totally know what you mean. It's that awkward stare from across the room like, should I go say something? What do I say? What do I say? How do I talk to this person? I don't know, right? But you're just a human being. We're
Mhm.
all just human beings in the end. We all have a voice. We all know how to talk to each other. Just because you can't see as well as I can doesn't make you any different than me, quite frankly, as a human being, as far as I can tell. That's I love that. I love that. So I guess the last set of things I want to know about is what sort of support does Brightside Scope need now, and how can we help with that? How can our audience help with that?
Yeah, so definitely, if you are a school, an organization, a corporation that wants any discussions about accessibility or race and culture, definitely reach out to me on my handles. And then also, if you're looking for consultation throughout your organization or communities, definitely let me know if you're doing any sort of PSAs or any sort of media type deals, reach out to me and then you'll get a different perspective for sure. So I definitely would love to offer that. And like I said, I want to incorporate that entertainment side of it. So One day I want to do a book. One day I want to have some merchandise. One day I want to have a documentary. So these are down the road, but for the most part, if you want a presentation, any accessibility consulting, or any media appearances, just let me know.
Amazing. We're going to put all your handles and all your social media stuff down below in the chat so anybody can take a look and reach out to you as necessary. That's awesome. Ben, you are an amazing human and I appreciate you even taking the time to come on our show today. As I said, like, there's probably a lot of people around you that are fairly proud of the work that you're doing and the effort that you've put into this because there's a lot of people in your situation that would bury their head and just say, "Oh, woe is me." And you are not that person, and I love that about you. So I appreciate you totally and utterly. So thank you everyone for watching the show today. We'll be back again next week, Thursday, same time, everyone, and have a good one. I appreciate it. See ya.